You don't look like you've done this before.
Kevin Walsh, thanks for coming in today. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me and accommodating my allergic needs here.
Absolutely.
Hi, Lou.
Unfortunately, we have a Lou stand-in today, but this she'll have to do here.
It's a real shame when you're allergic to your favorite dog
I
and
know.
she doesn't understand why.
She's just like, why, Kev? Why? All right, so we were talking about Evil and kind of how that all came about, and you were working with Iron Horse with Super Big. You were talking with Weagle. When did you guys decide to go to Greenlight Evil?
I think it was like late 2007.
Okay.
And so basically, at the time, it wasn't even Evil. It was just like, we're gonna start this new thing. When I was thinking about what I would create, I was looking at it's gonna sound silly, but it was like Epitaph Records, Ducati, and Subaru. And I was looking at man, if I built a company, these are kind of the sauce that I would make to start it. And it was Subaru had these awesome cars that you could get up to Mount Baker in, or you could buy a WRC car. They're the everyday driver for people, and then you could go get this rad WRC rally car. And then Epitaph Records to me was owned by Brett Gurewitz, from Bad Religion, but he would produce R.L. Burnside, who's one of my favorite blues artists, and then Bad Religion, the band that he was in. Then you had Ducati, which was just pure Italian sex, And I was like, man, if we can mix these things together, this would be pretty cool. Being a designer, I kind of had always looked and, I don't know, if I wasn't racing, I had some skate knee pads on and some Dickies and a hoodie. I guess, you have the crew of people that sit in the parking lot and talk a lot about bikes and setups and all of that. And I was more about the lifestyle component of it. Wanted to bring something different to the table. Because, there was a bunch of brands doing good stuff anyway. So, what could we do different? Basically, when we kind of committed to doing the idea, it was Dave's buy the rights to Evil from me. And I was like, dude, I don't like the name, And it wasn't religious or anything. It was just more it just reminded me of a cheesy kind of for me, for my taste, a name. And then I kind of looked and I was like, man, this could be a real good challenge to take something that maybe had a certain perception and put it through a different lens and represent it to people. It was 2008, kind of bought the assets of Evil from Dave. And then him and I at the time had been talking to Sam Hill. Sam was he had brought up DW Link's awesome. He really wanted something where he could kind of plow through a rock garden and then just kind of roll his toes, and pop over a double. And he really liked the adjustable geometry idea and stuff. And so at the time, Dave's well, why don't I make you something new? And so that was what ultimately became the Delta system. So it was kind of cool because we came into it with a purpose. I definitely wanted more playful, poppy bikes, stuff that you could kind of put the bike where you wanted it, but something that stoked you out every time you rode. You're that was such a good time. That gets overlooked a lot from people. They get caught up in all, the new stuff, or this is going to make me, ride like a champ and all that. But at the end of the day, I think it's everybody just wants to go have fun on their bike every time. Yeah, man. So that was kind of how we got it going. Didn't round up enough money. We started it all with U.S. manufacturing. Okay. And that was pretty unfortunate. So we were working with Sapa. We started with them and then they cut their bike division at the last minute. And so then we shifted to another factory in Asia that was recommended by some really close friends of ours. Yeah, that was 2009. I think we got the first bikes. Okay. But we had shown up at Interbike and the buzz was already going, which we didn't want. If anybody knows me, I'm more of the anti-hero, anti-hype. We don't advertise a lot. It kind of spiraled a little bit out of control. It took off. We were we don't have bikes. And so that kind of scared me because I was looking going, well, we don't even have anything right now. And people are thinking these bikes are coming right now. They were in development, but so that was interesting trying to mitigate all the hype. Like I said, we didn't get the funding that we had initially hoped for. And so, we were definitely like on really tight budgets to make everything happen. And I don't know, that was kind of the beginning of it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Pretty cool. A lot of things coming together to make it all happen.
There's definitely some pyramids moved in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were wild times.
I'm sure. All right, you're up, man.
I know this doesn't make sense the way I do it. Wow,
I wanted that one.
You really wanted
trying to
it.
drive her home, dude.
Yeah.
Trying to finish.
Damn it, I'm lagging.
So now you guys have a bike company. You have Evil going. Frames are starting to come in, sort of, eventually.
Yeah, they were coming in, and then basically at that point I got a call from Marcus Stokel, who's a friend of mine in Austria. Prior, he had the MS Intense team, and he hit me up and he's like, I want to partner with you guys. And I was like, with what? We're just getting these bikes, we're doing this. And I go, man, I don't have the money or the resources to do it. But he was like, anybody that knows Marcus, he's like an amazing human being. He really got behind it and wanted to make it happen. And so we did. And at the time we had Stevie Smith, who was getting kind of a lot of coverage at the time, but this was going to be his first season as an elite. And then we had Thomas Vanderham. So all of a sudden we walk into this huge World Cup team. Now we had Philip Polk, Matty Lahakoinen, we ended up Brooke McDonald at one time, Luke Strobel, had all these great athletes all of a sudden, and a Metallica tour bus and all of these crazy pits. And it was like, I think people didn't realize we were still 3 guys. Was it like, and I was working out of Super Big's office. It looked a lot bigger than it was. And then the bike started delivering. When we're doing testing, everything went really well. Typical little, hiccups that you have to correct, but for the most part, the bikes were spot on. All of a sudden, we went into mass production, and that's when all the problems kind of started. I had been designing bikes for quite some time. You have Dave Weagle's experience.
Yeah.
Tara's, Gabe's, and then all of our collective industry contacts and everything. And so you're crossing your T's, you're dotting your I's, you think you've done it. And if I went back in time, I'd do it all exactly the same. Like, I don't feel like we went in, eyes wide shut, if you will.
Yeah.
We started getting, defects, and then we started having problems, and the factory's trying to fix them. At that time, it just spiraled like out of control. Unfortunately, the factory we were working with wasn't offering any support to us, and kind of was working on other endeavors like folding bikes and stuff. And that put us in a really tough position. We had one bike, a downhill bike, and we had amazing orders for it. Like, it was really surprising at that time. But on the flip side, we're like, how are we going to make any money? We have no cash flow coming in right now. We're hemorrhaging money flying back and forth, to Taiwan. So yeah, it was turning pretty quickly into a really big disaster. But we persevered and we just kept going. But then it really started getting bad. Like, customers were getting bikes that were super defective. We're just constantly trying to figure out what these problems are. We build these bikes, we test them, we have no issues. And then, when you go to mass production, it's always tricky. So, we kind of got our asses handed to us, and we just kept trying, to rectify the problems, and we just couldn't do it. At that point, I had to stop production with them. The bikes, the quality was so bad. Like, I was going over and we were hand loading the bikes into CNC machines and doing this, and it just got to the point where it wasn't going to be repairable. I mean, I think there's still 350 revolts sitting
really
in a warehouse that are basically bookends. And so at that point, you can't really, you're like, oh well, I'm going to sue that company, I'm going to do this, and you don't have time or money for that. You have to keep moving. And it boiled down, it was like we were at World Champs and I was buying bikes back from customers so Stevie Smith could race. And that was the year he almost won. He got second place. And we drink to Stevie.
Hey, man, dude. Let's see, I might have to crack a new one here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry, Lou. Cheers. Cheers,
Yeah.
Stevie.
And so that kind of happened, and then after that it just crumbled. It was like the writing was on the wall. So Tara, Gabe, everybody left, and I was by myself, and I was like, what do I do? People liked how the bikes rode, we were happy with how they rode. How do we fix this? And it was like pretty dark days, and at that time wasn't getting much support from anyone. Just put my head down, took my punches. my Spanish distributor and good friend Luis, we can't let this die. Let's do this. And we begged, borrowed, stole, whatever we had to do to kind of make it happen. But we got it back, on the rails. And, then basically we had one of the factories we originally wanted to work with in the beginning approach us, and they helped us develop, what became the Undead and the Uprising. We're full carbon downhill bike and our trail bike. So we replaced every aluminum bike, hopefully, with this carbon bike, and just trying to make good on it. Because we're riders, we're out there with all these people, you're sitting there and all you want to do is make good on your word. And we pulled everything we could together. And I thought that was really interesting because, like I alluded to before, we learned a lot kind of through the disaster crisis management. We kind of got it back on the rails, and then, we were having some, production problems with the carbon, not nearly as bad as what we experienced with the alloy, but, we kind of had the company that we had co-developed, the carbon with was struggling with mass production. And at that point, it's like, you're like, how many more times can this happen? And then you feel like the world's out to get you. You're like, come on, man, we're trying so hard. And at that point, Luis, me and I were looking at it, and we were like, man, is it time? Is this thing dead? And people are on the internet, they're posting pictures of like the Titanic sinking and, everybody on the forums, it's like they love a good train wreck. Yeah. And so we were like, nope, that's not happening. And, we kind of fought through that tooth and nail. And so that was like even more of an ironic time, right? So we're coming off the heels of some problems with this carbon factory now. And like, we're all pulling our hair out, trying to just get to the point where we can show people that we can, produce a quality bicycle that's going to stay together, right? And so at that time, all of a sudden, Weagle's like, he's like, Kev, we're going to do a short travel 29er. And I'm like, a short travel 29er? Really, man? This is where we're going? Like, are we just putting more nails in the coffin here or what? And he's like, this will be like the best bike you've ridden up to date. It was the most uninspiring project for me because I didn't want to make it. Like, I didn't really care. And at the time, the stigma around 29ers, goofy geometry and not really, I would say, for like a brand like us. And so that was not only like super short-sighted of me, like really closed-minded, right? It's like, I knew the benefits of the wheel. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? But in the context, I had never ridden one that was rad, So I just kind of looked and I was like, dude, why aren't we doing the Insurgent? Everybody's waiting for a 150 27.5. Like, that's the most logical path for us, to get healthy again. And he's like, trust me, man. So we're designing the bike, we go through it all, and I go to Asia. I built it up over there and we're making sure that, everything's in order. And then I bring it home and I'm not excited, right? I'm just like, I'm building this bike that I don't even want to ride.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I bring it home and nobody's excited about this bike. Like, no one, right? So I get on this thing, I build it up, and I literally use the words, I'm like, I'm going to give this to a 29er guy once I get the shock tuning sorted out. And the first lap on it, I was like, Weagle, dude. And I don't even, it was nuts. And I'd never been so excited. And he's like, idiot, I told you. I'm like, so I'm apologizing to him. And ironically, like, the press release for that bike it started with my apology to Weagle and Palmer.
That's awesome.
Because it was, I was like, man, I was so in the wrong here. And that bike, like, changed my thinking. And like, after 2 laps, I call Weagle and I'm like, dude, we need to make a 160 on this thing. It's like something that kind of shakes the forest, right? And he's like, it's done already. Check your inbox.
He knew where he was going.
He knew, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, man, I got some apologies to make. Changed the course of the company, like overnight. December of 2014, when we got the first production bikes, and then it just kind of went haywire from there. Thinking of everything we had been through collectively as a company, and then this little short, low, slack 29er kind of turns things around. That was I didn't see that coming. Yeah, and once that kind of happened, then the momentum came back. And then what was cool there is, you know, now we were with a factory that knew how to build bikes and really stood behind their product. And we had a great relationship with, they built every single bike for us since.
Yeah.
But we went from having like arguably like the worst warranty rate to like none from fatigue and like stuff like that, you know. We had some paint issues and standard that you deal with, but for me, I was like, wow, I can almost sleep at night again.
Yeah.
You know? So that was the real turning point. And then what was really cool with that was we got to really start bringing on staff. How many times can you ask for forgiveness?
Yeah.
You know, and you just need to prove to people.
Yeah.
You know? And so I just, you know, like I said, I just took my punches where I had to take them, and then, you know, we came back out swinging, man. And so it was cool. And then slowly got to like even cross the T's and dot the I's a little better. Yeah, and things really turned around. And then, you know, before you know it, you know, we had 15 people and things were firing on most cylinders.
Yeah.
And that was pretty unreal to kind of turn it around after that. You know?
Sure, it's gonna be a little bit of a trip for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. You kind of put your life on hold, you know, and you feel guilty about like doing anything. So it was like during that whole time, I didn't ride bikes, I didn't snowboard really, wasn't doing anything that I enjoyed, because I kind of was like, I can't do that unless, you know, until I make good on all of this.
Yeah.
And that was something that was kind of important to me, but it was also like really bad because I wasn't taking care of myself, and that was, you know, didn't really help with like managing stress.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I remember when I got the first Uprising, you know, we made that, and I rode like 7 days a week.
Yeah.
It was just like, all right, you know, and that, you know, obviously that helps a lot with the stress and gives you a reason to kind of keep going too.
Sure.
You know, it was crazy times, man. I always forget about that.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I want to thank all of our customers that have stood by us throughout the years, and I mean that sincerely. Like all you guys that put up with the 2-week emails and all the bullshit that went down for so many years.
All right, well, Kevin, thanks, man.
Thanks,
really
buddy.
appreciate it. And,
Right on, you guys.
Yeah, stoked. Yeah, we'll finish it. You can't even hit it with the broad.